Several of the new uniques that were added in patch 3.26 have quickly become very popular, not only due to how powerful they are, but also how common they are as farmable boss drops. Whispers of Infinity is being used by 5% of characters in Softcore Trade League, Coiling Whisper is also being used by 5% of characters, and I've already covered both of those unique items in previous videos. Then there's the Dark Monarch, currently being used on 3% of characters, so this item is already quite popular, and I know there's already been a lot of discussion about this one in the community. However, in this video I want to focus on a few of the more niche interactions with this item, because I think these are flying under the radar and they're really strong. But before we get there, let's quickly go over the modifiers on this item. This is a Minion themed unique helmet and it's a Lich's Circlet. So notably, it has a level requirement of 84, so it's not going to be something that you're going to be able to just throw on immediately following the campaign. You will need to level up a little bit more before equipping it. There's some flat energy shield, but no increased energy shield modifier, so it provides a decent amount of energy shield, but nothing comparable to a crafted helmet. Then there's +1 to the level of all Minion skill gems. So this is the first trade-off here on this item for Minion builds specifically. A typical Minion build may utilise a crafted helmet to obtain a +2 to the level of all Minion skill gems. But this unique only grants one level, and there's a reason for that, which we'll get onto in just a moment. Then there's a really good Chaos Resistance modifier here. It rolls up to 37%, so that's very good on a high roll, but even on a min roll of 27%, it's still going to be useful outside of the use on Chaos Inoculation builds. Then we have 50% reduced light radius, okay. Then there's the unique modifier on this item, and this one is special in that it can roll several different outcomes. Maximum number of random minion type is doubled, and cannot have minions other than random minion type. So, random minion type is referring to the type of minion selected at random from a pool of 14 different options when this item is first dropped, or when using a Divine Orb to reroll modifier values. You can see on this list here the different types of minions it can choose, and there are also some notes here in regards to what it applies to and what it doesn't apply to. For example, animated weapons only applies to animated weapons from the skill itself. It won't work on Dancing Dervish or Animated Guardian. Now obviously some of these are considerably stronger than others. For example, Golems. I know that Mathil made an early video on this one and its potential on the Elementalist, especially after the buffs to Golem skills themselves and the Liege of the Primordial notable on the Elementalist. By doubling your maximum Golem limit, not only can you benefit from every single Golem buff available rather than having to choose which ones you want, but you can also combine it with the Primordial Chain and Primordial Bond stacking from Cluster Jewels to just gain a ridiculous amount of damage and area of effect and recovery, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. However, as I mentioned earlier, I want to focus on a few powerful interactions that are not being used much, if at all, right now. Beginning with Phantasms. This is a support gem that has a chance to spawn a small ranged minion upon killing an enemy with supported skills, and a lower chance to spawn when hitting a rare or unique enemy. So the Dark Monarch can roll Phantasms here, doubling your Phantasm limit and preventing you from using any non-Phantasm minions. Now I'm sure you could make a build using this with the newly buffed Soul Rest Staff, but I wanted to discuss a different unique, the Black Cane. Now this is a scepter that has a special modifier. Each summoned phantasm grants you Phantasmal Might. This is a buff that grants flat added physical damage to spells, and the added damage is based on two things: the level of the summoned phantasm support gem, and the amount of phantasms you have spawned at any one time. This is 2 to 3 added physical damage to spells, per gem level, per summoned phantasm. So with a level 21 summoned phantasm gem, the maximum limit of phantasms is 11, and you'll gain 42 to 63 added physical damage to spells per phantasm, for a total of 462 to 693 flat added damage with 11 summoned phantasms. That's already really good. That's a lot of flat damage, and notably this is physical damage too, which is typically much harder to obtain in large amounts compared to other damage types, because you can benefit a lot more from conversion and extra damage mechanics. But what happens when you equip the Dark Monarch? Well, the maximum phantasm cap is doubled, from 11 up to 22, and if you're able to spawn and maintain 22 Phantasms, you'd be gaining a ridiculous 924 to 1386 flat added physical damage to spells from the Phantasmal Might buff. Now, to put that into perspective, a level 20 Blade Vortex deals 140 to 211 physical damage, and it has an added damage effectiveness of 30%. Using the Black Cane with 22 Phantasms and a level 21 Summon Phantasm gem, that damage would almost triple, up to 417 to 627 physical damage, or approximately the same base damage as a level 30 Blade Vortex gem. Now, one thing to note here is that you do need to maintain the summoned Phantasms to gain the added damage. The support doesn't need to be in your main damage link, but for the purpose of mapping, you'll probably want it in your main link to make gameplay smoother. Obviously, if the Phantasms get killed, or if they despawn because their duration expired, you'll lose your added damage. However, in a bossing scenario, it may be best to focus on a fast-hitting ability to summon your Phantasms, especially if you have a lot of cast speed. Something like Bladefall linked to Arcanist Brand may provide a more hands-off way to spawn your Phantasms and provide added damage for your main ability. Also, one thing to mention here is that multiple sources of the Phantasmal Might buff do not stack, so you won't gain double the added damage from equipping a second Black Cane unique. Now, the other modifier that I want to discuss in this video is Summon Spectral Wolf. This one was used a lot in the Settlers League for an easy leveling setup from the rune-crafted version of this skill, and you'll often see people using the Rigwald's Crest unique ring during leveling too. Summon Spectral Wolves creates wolf minions with a cap of 10 wolves from all sources. The Dark Monarch will increase this cap to 20, and the wolves have a base duration of 30 seconds and they'll follow you around and attack enemies. But notably, similar to the Black Cane interaction, summoned wolves will grant you an added physical damage buff, this time to attacks. Now, Rigwald's Crest provides a level 10 version of this skill, which is extremely strong in the early campaign but falls off very quickly as you progress. However, there is another unique, the Law of the Wilds, which is a claw, and it's an exclusive drop from Oshabi. And this is currently the only way to access the level 25 version of Summon Spectral Wolf. Another notable difference here is how the wolves are spawned, with a chance to spawn on critical strike with the claw, rather than on kill, so you can somewhat reliably spawn these wolves during boss fights. So, what's the difference between level 10 and level 25? Well, the minions themselves have more life and deal more damage with attacks, but the added physical damage to attacks buff they grant you is also much stronger. The level 10 version grants you 3 to 6 damage per wolf, while the level 25 version grants 8 to 16 damage per wolf, for a total of 80 to 160 flat added physical damage to attacks at 10 wolves. But when you equip the Dark Monarch, the wolf cap doubles to 20, at which point you'd be gaining 160 to 320 flat physical damage added to attacks with 20 summoned wolves. And to put that into perspective, Bloodthirst support grants flat added physical damage based on 2% of your maximum life while you're on low life, and you'd need around 12,000 maximum life and be on low life to gain the same amount of average added damage. Now, that is a lot of flat added damage for attacks, and I want to highlight one skill in particular for use with this interaction, Dual Strike of Ambidexterity, which attacks with both weapons but uses your offhand attack speed whilst providing a huge more damage multiplier for the main hand. This means you can use Law of the Wilds in your offhand as it has low damage but very high attack speed, and every attack used will roll its critical strike to spawn wolves. Then in the main hand you can use Paradoxica or Frost Breath, two weapon options that can deal double damage, so you can massively benefit from the flat added damage and the more damage multiplier for your main hand weapon combined. And that's pretty much it. The Dark Monarch obviously has a ton of uses across all of its variants, but I wanted to highlight these two interactions in particular because I think they're flying under the radar a bit right now. Thanks for watching this video, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.